Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So today we're going to continue a series on some of my favorite B-tier beat-em-ups of all time, and today, if you can't tell already, we're taking a look at Arabian Fight. Now this is a very interesting game. It runs on the Sega System 32, and in a lot of ways it feels like an evolution of Golden Axe, except more as a tech demo and less as a beat-em-up. Because while the graphics and sprite scaling in this are some of the most impressive stuff Sega's ever done, the actual beat-em-up aspect is quite interesting and a little bit of an afterthought. Before you get far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But the first time I saw Arabian Fight in motion in an arcade, I was absolutely blown away. This game does things with sprites and scaling that we had never seen before, and you'll see here as the enemy starts inside of the screen almost and jumps into the playfield. It looks about as close to 3D as you could possibly imagine without any polygons on screen whatsoever. So as far as a graphical showcase of the power of the System 32 and Sega's ability to scale a sprite and make it seem like it's a 3D world, Arabian Fight was one of the best games you could possibly ever experience back in 1992. Now on the gameplay front, it is a little bit of a different story. This is a totally competent beat 'em up, but it's never going to rise to the level of something like Golden Axe, or definitely not Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder. This seems to be a graphical showcase and a technical demonstration that has a beat 'em up wrapped around it. And you'll see here we do have our magic activated. It works on a very similar system to Golden Axe, but as opposed to getting blue bottles, you're going to get genie lamps that are going to give you different power-ups and magical abilities. Now this is not a bad game whatsoever. I'm here to convince you to try it if you've never have. I'm just not here to tell you it's a hidden gem on the gameplay front, because it is totally in that B tier of beat 'em ups, which is interesting because that's not really an area which Sega lived in whatsoever. They made some of the best arcade and console beat 'em ups of all time, so it's interesting that Arabian Fight definitely is a level below what they're most well known for, and this does seem like an instance of a game that is here to show off hardware and technical prowess as far as coding is concerned, and the gameplay definitely comes second. Now on the theming front, if you can't tell already, this is basically Aladdin, Arabian Nights sort of mythos going on here. We have Egyptian theming, we have all of those Middle Eastern aspects, where something like Golden Axe definitely going to be more of that Lord of the Rings style fantasy orc thing going on. But I love the theming in this game, all of the sprite work, everything in it. It is just absolutely outstanding to look at from start to finish, and some of these special attacks, the magics, are hilarious. You just basically break yourself into 10 much smaller sprites running around, and all of the bosses are very creative as well and take a lot of aspects from different bits of history. You're even going to see some movie theming in here as well. It's just such an interesting game to look at. Even when you die, you get thrown into the screen there. It almost feels like FMV video playing over top a video game, but this is all done in real time with the sprite scaling. Kind of has a little bit of a Dragon's Lair vibe to it, at least in the animations, and pretty much every sprite is going to be fully animated. Almost feels like in some instance it was rotoscoped. And you'll see here as we get into the desert level, there's so much going on graphically at once. This is an absolute feast for the eyes. It's just one of those things where the gameplay definitely does not match the visuals, and I feel like that's why this game doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. It's always talked about as being a very pretty technical showcase, but people always say to skip it because the combat isn't that great. I'm here to tell you that if you have skipped it, you definitely should go back and give it a shot. It's not going to be your new favorite hidden gem, but it is a totally competent game, and there is a lot of fun to be had. And like pretty much every other beat 'em up, it's going to be better if you bring friends. There's 4 playable characters you can choose from, and that does give you a decent amount of versatility. If this game reminds me of any one thing, it's going to be Guardian Heroes on the Sega Saturn. All of the scaling sprites, all of the ability to move into the foreground and background, it just has that same similar look and feel, but in this instance it's not 3 different layers that you select. You can walk forward and backward in real time, and your sprite is going to scale so smoothly. And that's so much what the System 32 was, a scaling powerhouse. It could do things with sprites no other hardware on the market could get close to back when it released, and this is definitely a testament to that. The soundtrack, probably like B- tier though. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back. It's an interesting soundtrack and it fits thematically with the content, but usually when I'm talking about Sega and arcade soundtracks, I say they made some of the best music of all time, where here in Arabian Fight, I would say that they did an absolutely average job as far as the music and sound effects are concerned. It really does seem like the entire design philosophy of this game was to put as much graphical effects and intrigue into the image as possible, make a game around it, and ship it to arcades. And that's why if you do look up the reviews, you're always going to see just how impressive this game is visually, but you're not going to hear very many good things about the gameplay. But I'm here to tell you it's better than you've read, not as good as Sega's other entries, but that's the fun thing about doing a beat 'em up series. They don't all have to be 10 out of 10 hidden gems, they can totally be 7.5 out of 10 fun experiences that you should have a look at to see what was going on back in the day. Because I remember when this first came to my local arcade, I had never seen anything quite like this. And I will say that the game is relatively fair as far as a beat 'em up is concerned. It's definitely not going to hold your hand, and it is going to try to get some quarters off you, but it's not going to completely frustrate you like some other games in the genre where you feel like no matter what you do, the only thing you can be successful at is dying so you can feed the game more quarters. And that's the fun thing about a game like this. We're putting virtual quarters in, so it really doesn't matter how fair the game actually is. And as we move on, I will give Sega all the credit in the world. Every single letter has a completely different theming going on. You go from the desert to these castle levels with all these lush green trees in the background. They did a great job trying to give you a lot of different things to look at. And I love that that character throws his cape off and becomes this gigantic winged dragon that you have to fight. The creativity is a 10 out of 10 on this game, from the theming to the sprite scaling to the pseudo 3D effects to all of the different levels and enemies you fight. You can tell the people that made this game absolutely loved it, and you'll see here in just a moment just how much fun some of these special attacks can truly be. And again, this definitely just feels like Golden Axe, except set in the world of Aladdin, and obviously that blue genie right there is probably going to look a little bit familiar. But honestly, this game just has so much visual flair to look at. You always want to keep playing it because you're so intrigued to see what they did next, like all these parallax scrolling effects of these clouds that then fade away so you can just basically see the level. They get stronger and weaker as you go. It is so hyper impressive. You had never seen anything like that back in the day. I just wish that they could have made the combat ever so slightly better, because this game does suffer a little bit from the lack of ability to line up properly. Sometimes you feel like you should totally be hitting the opponent in front of you, but you're like 3 or 4 pixels too high or too low in the screen, and for some reason, even though it seems like you're connecting with your opponent, you're totally whiffing those hits. The grapples, however, are much easier to achieve. Let me give you one more taste of the soundtrack, because the first track wasn't my favorite, but this one definitely is much better. I'll be back in 30 seconds though.
Magic carpet, come to me. Cool, cool.
Definitely still not the best soundtrack ever, but that was better than the first track, but that one doesn't really fit thematically. It seems way more like a rock soundtrack. And interestingly enough, I did look at the release dates of Disney's Aladdin versus this game, and you have a blue genie in both of them, but they were basically released almost at the exact same time, which is a really fun coincidence. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think happened there. I'm sure Sega and Disney were not talking whatsoever, maybe just a happy accident, but it is a very weird one. But honestly, Arabian Fight is super interesting. It is basically a developer doing everything they can with 2D to make it look like 3D, because 3D hardware was not yet prolific on the market. And because Sega was so good at making 2D games, they've been doing it forever and wowing us with everything they put out as far as the graphics are concerned. It's no surprise that they were pushing at the seams of what a 2D game could look like, basically making it seem like it took place in a fully 3D environment, and they were absolutely successful with Arabian Fight. It's one of those games, if you've never played it, you have to experience it. This is basically as far as 2D could be taken in that era to try to make it seem like you were playing a 3D game, and very shortly after this, you'd start seeing a lot of 3D in the arcade. So this is basically 2D swan song as far as Sega is concerned, and as far as I'm concerned. But if you ever played this game before, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. I'd be curious of your opinion. But I'll be back next week with another beat 'em up video. I'll have videos throughout the week as well, but we're going to fight Bob here. Yes, that's his name. It's hilarious, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.